Everybody, thanks very much for attending the BroadcastPro Awards, always well organised by Vijaya. We've got, unfortunately, the afternoon dead slot, so we've been told to try and spice it up to stop you guys sleeping or being bored, so we're trying to encourage a bit of banter between us around the subjects. We go through a few questions around the changing state of the broadcast industry and what's happening. And then at the end, we'll have a bit of a chance for some Q&A with everybody. So without wanting to rush through, I've got my colleagues here who are all recognized in the industry as some experts, I hope. And I'll start the ball rolling about really broadcast workplace transformation. And because we've got Ali here from TRT, which is a huge organization, I'd really like to start the questions with Ali and ask, you know, in the change in place of broadcast and the shift to IP, in an organization the size of TRT, culturally, where do you start and how do you implement a change?
Thank you first. So, we didn't know where to start, to be honest. And it wasn't only about the technology change. Technology, it provides you with a set of tools that you need to explore and check and try to adapt what you use from into your operational model. The first challenge was the culture, how people will approach these type of changes. When you talk about TRT, it's a huge organization, more than 9,000 employees, more than 30 channels. It had been operating for the last 30, 40 years independently. So the complete concept about it is how to tackle and approach these type of changes. So first, it starts with people. From people, you build your tactics, who will resist the change, how the change will be implemented, and what is the roadmap for it. The first thing we learned that you don't need to rush into it. So you offer multiple options, you discuss it internally and externally with vendors and solution providers, so you can be able to build your roadmap. Once you get over the cultural changes, then you start working on, we called it a workflow-based approach. Because if you want to change everything at the same time, from your enterprise operational model into your content generation and distribution operational model, plus technology at the same time, you will create a lot of problems that you cannot even fix. Yeah. So culture, people, solution, operational model.
Yeah, and what sort of time frame do you put on something like this?
So
it's ongoing evolution, I guess.
We are trying now to divide it into two concepts, actually. First one will be the channels which they are Turkish-based channels, that they use the Turkish language as a base. Mm-hmm. The second part of it is the foreign languages. So we're trying to build it in parallel.
Right.
So for the foreign language channels, we are expecting in like 2 years to be completed. The Turkish one, it's going to take more time because it's around like 30 channels. Okay. It's going to take a lot of time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'd like to ask the same question to Ghassan there. Obviously, different type of technology, different type of organization. How does this evolution in the industry affect yourself and your cultural change within Eutelsat?
Thank you. Yeah. So basically, as Eutelsat coming from satellite operator, we were facing this challenge of people moving to IP, to OTT, to multi-screen, to VOD. So we understand that we are living a transformation, and as Eutelsat, we believe that we need, if you want to keep a big place in this ecosystem, we need also to transform ourselves. So basically, we believe that, of course, satellite will stay for some time in the region, and we believe, especially in MENA, it has a big role still. Yeah. But as well, we believe that OTT is important, IP is important, and hence we just announced in IBC our new product called Cirrus. So it is a pure OTT platform. And the idea behind it is that we think that Eutelsat with more than 6,000 channels, we have enough economy of scale to provide a one-stop solution to broadcaster. So basically, with Cirrus, we will have an integrated platform, white label platform again. So The branding and the look and feel is, of course, platforms and broadcasters will still manage. But we will take over all the burden of technical head-ends from the broadcasters in terms of broadcasting, satellite broadcasting, also OTT, CDN, extra. And we think there's a value because at the end, somehow satellite and OTT, we see it as converging in a sort of one look and one feel. And like this is the first step. We have a very ambitious roadmap with this platform. And we are very optimistic that this is the right direction that we need to take as an industry.
Yeah, I think a number of broadcasters have taken that step with you already, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so part of this change in the industry is a big topic everyone's been talking about for the past few years is cloud. And fortunately, some of the guys on the panel today have got quite a lot of experience in that transition. I'd like to start with Dave, really. Now, you've done quite a lot of work on cloud already, and you've done a lot of the transition in the business across to cloud. Are you seeing any benefits already, and what are those benefits that you're seeing in your business today?
Yeah, I mean, we're on a large sort of scale migration across IT, across broadcast. Anything in that building, we want to try and get out of there. You know, we're not in the data center business. That's not what we do. We're a content business. Yeah. We're in entertainment. Technology naturally comes with that, but anything from a glass to glass, we want to shift on a broadcast side, and anything on an IT side, if we can move it, we can move it. There's obvious benefits for that. You get the usual sort of stuff. You get the scalability, you get the modern technology, you get DR, more business continuity, whatever you want to call it, built into this stuff. But it's agility and experimentation, I'd say. Sorry, excuse me.
So commercially, is it saving you money, or it's just more efficient for you at the moment?
In the long term, yes. If you think you're going to migrate to cloud and save money in the first year, you need a wake-up call, because you're not going to do it. Post 12 months, 18 months, you may do it. You may get small pockets of services or departments that you'll migrate pretty quickly, and your TCO is instantly sort of better. Yeah. That's not the sort of case with a big scale migration. You're going to have to accept that your cost may go up. Right. And in the long run, it goes down. But it brings, it isn't just a costing for cloud. It brings, you don't bring innovation as such. You allow people just to get on with it. Get out of their way and let them get on with it. And this is what cloud sort of brings to you. It lets you experiment. It lets you try stuff. Yeah. It lets you fail, but it doesn't matter if you fail. Just get on with it and try something. Instead of talking about it, do it. Just go, go, go. You know, it brings true sort of agility to try stuff. Yeah.
Thanks, Dave. And Murat, how are you finding the adoption of cloud within Integral, and are you seeing benefit with this?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. I think it's a bit tricky talking about the cloud, because at the end of the day, it depends on the situation that the company is in, to be honest with you. To start with, any small organization, when it starts, it's definitely better for it to start small as well, as cloud is going to reduce your cost, reduce your capex, etc., and it makes you, at the end of the day, very, very agile. Mm-hmm. The more you grow, at the end of the day, just like what happened to us in Integral, you realize that there are some certain areas within your infrastructure that at the end of the day does not make a lot of sense to maintain in an OpEx model anymore. It goes in, at the end of the day, based on the usage that we see, and basically whenever we talk about video, then we're talking about huge amount of data that at the end of the day it becomes a little bit very, very costly to maintain working as, you know, with the cloud, with the potential partners. That were basically at the end of the day...
Egress costs.
Yeah, OpEx costs.
But so that's, cloud costs for egress is expensive.
Yes. Yes, I agree. I mean, at the end of the day, look, I mean, the point is, it's all about the business case that needs to be there at the end of the day. And it's about what are the areas. Like when you talk about, for example, infrastructure and hosting of web pages and stuff, that is something that is definite, that it's better to go to the cloud. But when it goes to video delivery, it's a different beast, right? I mean, the amount of transactions that another is going to be put there, the cost that you're going to pay, is going to be very, very high when you talk about cloud. And that basically when we talk about, for example, taking things back in, that could potentially be a good strategy for technology in the long run.
Okay, so there's still a trade-off between the two, and you do the calculations between
Absolutely.
what you move there and what you keep on-prem.
Bandwidth in this region is ridiculous.
What's that?
The bandwidth in this region.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's not cost effective whatsoever.
I think that's what we see across everybody we speak to in the region, always finds this struggle to pay for the connectivity here, and often that hinders the growth in the new technologies. Okay, but on the same subject, Adriaan, I see a lot of UAE, Saudi very active around 5G, but I haven't seen any impact or what's going to happen to the business. Do you have a view on that from NBC? Is there any plan for 5G and what it might bring to NBC?
Well, from a broadcaster perspective, and more specifically digital perspective, what we do is OTT. So almost by definition, we don't really care what a network is like. In practice, of course, we're nowhere near at the stage where we can not care about the network or what that looks like. And one of the big problems right now with mobile networks and networks in general is that everybody expects all video to move onto internet and OTT. But right now we don't really have the capability to handle that. If everybody now stopped watching satellite TV and switched to streaming on devices, the internet would break down. So we need 5G. Other than that, I try to stay away from micromanaging the network layer. Again, that's a bit of a fiction because, especially in this region, you have to be very acutely aware of how everything is interconnected. We have connectivity problems to our buildings, from our buildings to the internet. So you do have to understand what the end users are actually using and what that looks like. But we try to stay on that abstraction layer. So I'm very happy to see that development. I see in some of the countries where we struggle to deliver a good video streaming experience, to sort of the old school fixed connections that, for instance, in Egypt aren't very reliable. And we see people who have 4G already have a great streaming experience, even in countries that are struggling with traditional connectivity. I think 5G is going to make our lives a lot easier. Yeah, and I guess allow for the higher formats, the 4K and things like that for people to enjoy. Not even talking about 4K, and I think the case for 4K is a bit of a difficult one. I think there's a couple of companies, for instance, Netflix can draw audience by offering 4K content because people buy expensive TVs and they need something to display. In reality, it's a bit of a debate whether it makes an actual difference to the end user. So I'd rather actually stick to HD at a great quality. And that's enough of a problem as it is, to be honest. That's true. Very true. Very true. And you mentioned there about user experience, and I spoke to Murat earlier. You know, all the new change in technologies allowing for greater experience for your audience. And what are you doing, you know, in terms of creating that user experience for your audience? Could you share? So I think this goes into multiple fields, right? The first one is being multi-screen, right? At the end of the day, one of the best things that we're implementing right now with a lot of also vendors in the same way, that we're just making sure that we have one experience across multiple channels. In that case, going across, you know, the TVs, the mobile tablets, the you know, gaming consoles, et cetera, and that is something that basically utilizing with another, making sure that there's one technology behind that. So basically, it's single sign-on. You log into that system, and you can basically use the content and streaming across all multiple devices. This being said, I mean, we're investing a lot on having our own as well user experience and our own design team to provide our own also look and feel that makes our product and features also unique as much as possible.
I mean, as you know, at the end of the day, content is definitely the king part, but at the same time, if you don't have the experience that will make people stick to it, it becomes unusable, and then people will find another platform to use.
They go away very quickly, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. And another disruptive technology or enabler, and this is...
Sorry for interrupting you, but I was thinking back to the cloud topic. And it's very tempting to talk about moving into cloud. But I was just realizing, as we were discussing this, that the actual problem isn't so much should we move into cloud or how is it going with moving into cloud. I think in digital, the actual problem now is multi-cloud. It's no longer a case of can we make the case for making this big move, and we'll take our servers, we create a copy, we put it on a similar instance on a cloud service, so we find a cloud service that is cost effective because that's our business case. In our case, in digital, we're completely rebuilding our infrastructures around microservices, which actually run on containers running on those VMs in the cloud, which also means that on the one hand, you can basically run these everywhere, and you can dynamically deploy them everywhere.
Yeah.
So we're starting to look at this much more as, well, we want to run this in Amazon, because that gives us good latency to this region, but this one we'll run on Azure, and then there's a couple of things that run on Google Cloud as well.
Yeah.
So managing that is the upcoming challenge now, really, is how do you manage this across these different cloud providers? That's for the more or less standardized, containerized servers and microservices. And on the other hand, there's a very specific services that all of these cloud providers have, where I have to constantly re-evaluate between a Google and an Amazon and a Microsoft what they do on video analysis, for instance.
So, talking about just touching on that then, would you say for a role for a traditional, say, system integrator that was building out and integrating AVOD and different manufacturers' products to be looking at how best to serve broadcasters by enabling and being able to advise the best cloud technologies for different things and how to integrate all of those services into one, like as
People can't even get one cloud right, never mind two.
What's that?
People can't even get one cloud right, never mind.
Yeah.
So
So
I get you on containers,
Yeah.
and I totally agree.
But you see, if you
Kubernetes containers, things like that. But
it's like money supermarket, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can go on, you'd be able to search which cloud does this tick, tick, tick.
A lot of these things are currently, the software companies are saying, well, we do cloud, we've started building this with Microsoft. Or we do cloud, we've started building this as a service on Amazon.
Yeah.
And you don't really have a choice,
Yeah.
which I think is a bit yesteryear.
That's a lot of vendors doing that.
Yeah.
Jumping in bed with a cloud
Like we
provider.
know how to do this with Microsoft, but we don't really know how to do this with Amazon. Whereas from my perspective, I want to choose where to put it, which is probably based on a mix of cost, latency, performance.
Yeah.
And I'm pleased to deploy it there. But those mechanisms of deploying across multiple clouds are still more or less in their infancy.
Yeah, I would say, and then different suppliers looking at different ways of approaching the same subject. So for a big place with a huge infrastructure across multiple vendors, transitioning their business into that would then be a potential integration and a big headache.
Yeah, and what we're starting to see now is mechanisms where automatically stuff is deployed in different cloud services depending on spot pricing. So there's sort of an automated bidding going on, trying to find, and especially if you're looking at big data infrastructures, you need to do heavy number crunching, then it pays off to actually have those kind of automated mechanisms.
Right. Yeah.
But a lot of the software companies, and especially in broadcast, a lot of the software companies are still lagging, as in, well, we're used to run this on a Blade server that has this kind of specification, and we've talked to Microsoft, and they have a virtual instance that works the same way.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's spot on. They feel a rush to get to a cloud. A cloud vendor basically gives them a load of cash. They lift and shift. Well, what a waste of time.
Yeah.
If you're not going to build it in more a cloud-native approach that moves around, get out of the building for all I care. I'm not interested.
Yeah.
If you're going to lift and shift your product, but I get the pressure to get in the cloud because everyone wants to be there.
Yeah.
But for a lot of vendors, it's a big rewrite. You want to shift to a container stuff. You want to shift to a native database, but then you don't want to shift, so you're stuck on that database.
Yeah.
If you're a vendor and they come in with a wad of cash and say, come on our cloud, we'll fund you, that's a tough wad of cash to turn away, isn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
Selling yourself to the devil.
Sorry for cycling back to that, but maybe it's because I've been in Dubai for 7 years, so I'm fascinated by clouds.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't see them often enough, do we?
You know, guys, I mean, one of the other things that could be a potential driver in that is the client that you're working with as well, right? I mean, whenever you work sometimes with operators, then so many times they ask you bluntly that, listen, you cannot use the cloud if you want to integrate with service A and B and C and D and F. So what's happened sometimes that this could be a game player as well, where basically you will have to, at the end of the day, do a dual kind of technical architecture where, unfortunately, sometimes for basic stuff, you will have to deploy within the operator infrastructure itself, which is a private computer. I see a lot of operators also right now trying to build their own cloud within their own infrastructure, which is interesting at the end of the day, but it's a very hard game for them to be able to compete with the big players as well. I mean, just like we were saying, there's a very big competition happening with you know, I mean, one of the biggest companies in the world, right? Whether it's Google, Amazon, or Microsoft, and just operators are trying also to compete in that field for their own environments that they create, which is very interesting, to be honest with you guys, when it comes to the overall game.
Well, I mean, it shouldn't be just rebranding your hosting services, which is what happened in many cases. Like, we're no longer a hosting company, or we no longer offer hosting services. This is our cloud, which is not entirely the same thing.
Exactly.
And so a lot of these buzzwords, of course, get misused as well, even including serverless, which is the other big thing in cloud, is no longer actually looking at servers at all, because that's what you need when you shift from a traditional on-premise install to cloud. Yes, you need that metaphor, but in reality, this is not needed or an efficient way to run your workloads. But serverless is now something that you apparently can run on-premise. And then you can run on a virtual hybrid cloud, which is stretching the buzzwords to the breaking point.
Yeah.
Which is on this topic, it's technically the buzzword. Yes, we want to go cloud. Yes, we want to go IP. Yes, we want to virtualize. If I go 15 years back, when we started the concept of centralization of data centers for broadcasters, it was some type of cloud, right? In a separated area in one campus, protected, different measures, you connect all of it as client-based, web-based, whatever. So it's a buzzword. I just want to, there is something maybe not all of you will agree with me. When we started this process about virtualization, then later on into clouding, software-based, subscription-based, we tried to humanize it as a human, as people, normal users. How are we going to take benefit of this technology? First as users, then in the back end, how are we going to save money, CapEx over OpEx, all of these criterias. And again, for us, at the beginning, it was, okay, we are changing the way we are approaching that matter. We are not going to pay the hardware providers anymore. We are paying a different type of company, which is they are a huge company that specifically in broadcast, they are way, way behind understanding what it requires. So when we're doing our due diligence about this, it covered technically what we are discussing right now. Which is the best model? Yes, I agree, the IT part was the easiest part. Web, IT, infrastructure, all these type of services, ERP systems, all these matter, yes, we can cloud it. It's fine, it's available, availability, agility, scalability. Then when we started dividing what type of content and what type of channels we want to establish. Yes, we started, let's say, a channel in a box, documentary channel type. Yes, it can work. It's easy, the infrastructure is manageable, it can be taken under control, you can completely put it on a cloud platform, you can completely even give it to a solution provider, a product provider that can do everything. You will link to it, upload your packages, upload everything, distribution, production, done, easy. Music channels, the same. We faced a dead end when we tried in two types of channels, sports and news, especially for already established organizations. The transition is so hard, so painful, and costly. This is why when I started, I said about culture and attitude and type of skills you require to move this type of business. So if I'm building a new channel, a small one, yes, of course, from a technology-oriented guy, I want to go a complete IP end-to-end.
You want to reduce your initial
Exactly.
cost. You want to do something that is quick. Absolutely.
And not even quick, like if it's manageable and contained, and I can justify the budget easily, yes, this is CapEx versus OpEx, this is how it's going to cost you, I can do it, I'm fine. Then later on, when we go deep inside, let's start with news. The complete ecosystem around the news, from news gathering into production on the headquarters, remote sites, on the field, going back, MAM, PAMs, indexing, shot listing, DOP sheets, all these multiple layers of network. Because when you do like all this interconnectivity, you need to think about data privacy, security. So you open a beast, and unfortunately, the providers, everyone claims that we have your solution end to end. No, you don't. Unfortunately, you don't. Standards we don't have yet. We are working on these standards. So our approach was for small channels, you can manage the content and the user expectations. Yes, let's try to push it forward. Let's take the next step and even try the people that we are working together to legalize and regulate these. We test, we give them feedback based on experience, how we're gonna fix latency, audio issues, transmission issues, all this type of stuff. The other part, on large scale, I would say in the next 2 years, we were trying and pushing for news and sport to go IP. It seems with the available tools now, it's not gonna happen, and we're gonna go to a hybrid model. This hybrid model also will cost money because you need to build the foundation. The most important part is the companies will need to understand that when you do the first step, you need to spend money. Then you see the return later on. There is no instant
You have to get
win.
out of the hybrid mentality. I know you have to be there, and it's painful, and you have to do it for long.
And as a person, yes, I wanna get rid of it, but I'm
people are
being a
planning
little
for
bit
it-
realistic. I'm trying to be realistic because most of news agencies, they cannot tolerate problems. They cannot tolerate off-air. Okay, I clouded DR.
But what can you not get in the cloud for news?
Like we faced issues on the network infrastructure. We faced issues, which is maybe because it's a government company, regulations and laws about where is your data, data protection, data accessibility, where is the data center if you want to go off-prem, where are you going to store your data? If somebody, according to a certain laws, like in Germany or Ireland or in the state itself, they can shut you down. So as a government institution, we discussed all these matters, rights, geo-blocking, all these type of things, that they were small details, but they had a really big impact. Going into 5G also, because it was also one of the parts that we tried to look for sports, especially that we have in that region in Turkey, we have some rights for the World Cup, we have the Turkish League, and we have a lot of things. And a lot of this production is done on 4K. Okay, we had the telecom on our side. We did a lot of trials, we did a lot of shit. It's not only in this region that the bandwidth is bad, but it seems no one is talking to the telco in a way that dealing with video and this type of production will need to create a partnership so you can increase this. Because, yeah, on a test base, the last test done on 5G, it was amazing. In London was done in many areas. But in real life, when you have multiple users connecting, downloading, interacting, it wasn't that easy. Right. So, and even the regulation for the 5G is not set yet. It's happening.
It's still in
maybe
process.
Maybe first quarter 2019.
Your issue is then connectivity. It's back to the connectivity thing. Yeah. It's not a cloud issue, it's a connectivity issue.
I'm talking about all of them because if you want to cloud the complete sports production, you need connectivity and infrastructure.
That's your only headache.
So
connectivity isn't necessarily a cloud.
It can be to anywhere.
Telco provider.
Yeah, it's fundamentally connectivity, and you touched upon government being the local. You can't back up sometimes outside of region,
which you can do on-prem.
Yeah,
which is fine.
Yes.
We are just like we try to make it like to cut it piece by piece and see where it can succeed and where it can't. Right. When we saw like when it can't, we didn't stop and said no, we are not going to move there. We are asking and looking into solution provider, solution architects, and even building our own internal skills, maybe to try to develop something to help us with it. Like on this matter about taking it as a whole or distributing it. In 5G, there is 3 issues that now they are under discussion to finalize it. The spectrum, fragmentation, and speed, right? It's the same approach, I think, that regardless of spectrum, the fragmentation, what it works, what it doesn't, what is our roadmap to fix it, as broadcasters, as solution providers.
It's telcos.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's move on to another subject. I think we've killed cloud a little bit now.
Thank you. Are you sure?
We just talked shortly now about the impact of artificial intelligence and machine learning. Now, in my own personal work, I see a lot of benefit from the artificial intelligence, machine learning, especially around localization, greatly improving ability to subtitle, program, etc. So maybe I'll start with you, Ghassan. Are you having any impact from AI within the Eutelsat organization? Is that anything that you look at to complement your processes?
Sure, like to give you an example, this platform that we launched in IBC series, it has a very long roadmap, and part of this roadmap is targeted advertising, even on the satellite. So it seems complicated, but we will reach there. And of course, for me, artificial intelligence, personalized TV, personalized EPG, all this is, the engine is artificial intelligence to understand what's the next thing that the consumer will want, of course.
Yeah.
So this is a big part of it.
It's massive for us.
Yeah, exactly.
Huge.
And, and where do you start with that? And what's the impact on the organization itself?
One of the first use cases we brought in for was compliance. Speech to text. Can we start detecting things where it talks about local stuff that's important to us? Islam, local dignitaries, local brands. It takes a human to watch that entire asset and look for it. And a human inevitably misses things.
Yes.
And that just happens. But if you can sit down to QC your content and it's already been harvested of all this rich metadata and it says Emirates is at this point, it says Islam at this point, the context of where it says Islam is derogatory, so you should look at this. This helps you miss mistakes. It should speed up your process, but it's massive for us. And then it goes beyond that of creative services. They want a soundbite. It can take them a week to find a soundbite. You just type it, bosh, done.
Yeah.
It opens up so many doors.
So it complements a business, brings a lot more value than
you will never replace.
People
are
still there, then it just makes them do their job a lot better.
It never replaces. And you'll hear people saying, they grasp onto a buzzword, machine learning, AI. It's been around for years. It's just computers made it so much more easier. It will never replace people in certain aspects. But in broadcast and things like that, it's creative. You have to have it there. It just helps the process or helps a person do their job in such ways.
I think they did not.
Can't take a person out of it.
They did not replace them yet, right?
No, but you can't. In a creative sense, you cannot replace a person. You can't. You can do automated clips and highlights and things like this. We're seeing this in news, but for us in compliance, there is absolutely no way I could trust it to clip it in a clean cut and make sure it's taking out the right thing, that it's 100% accurate, and then put this on air. If you think that it's going to fully replace a human,
I mean, look, I mean, I agree with you on the current technology stack that we have, 100%. But I mean, I don't see any reason why the systems won't be able to replicate anything that is, let's say, transactional, level 1 operational, right? I mean,
there's some stuff it can replace. I'm not saying it can. I'm saying there's some stuff in a creative sense where you actually need an eyeball to have a context on it. I don't think you can take a person out of it.
That can be
some job
transformed
functions.
Into,
you could take a person out of it.
That can be transformed into, for example, something that a machine is able to learn with time. And that is what's about.
You can't learn creativity with time.
Correct, but you can do basic stuff like, for example, censorship, right?
You can highlight censorship, but you can't say that that is 100% accurate to put that on air.
I think the
And if
chief-
you're going to
the chief-
risk putting that on air
So
with
the
certain
chief problem,
contracts?
and we've seen this, and just to bring it back to cloud services,
Yeah.
but one of the reasons that the Googles and the Amazons and the Microsofts have been relatively successful with transcribing video, doing sentiment analysis on video and things like that, is because they have huge training sets. And one of the key things that changed in the past 20 years is not the way we do this. That didn't really fundamentally change. The thing is that if we look at a system like this 15 years ago, it would be, well, the only problem is it has these algorithms, but somebody has to sit there and go through at least 5,000 pictures and say, yes,
You have
this
to
one,
train
no,
this
not this one, yes, this one. If you do this on something very specific, like I think it's 40 pages of compliance manual that we have at NBC, of stuff that needs to be edited in specific ways, probably we need to use all of our people for several years to train these systems. So something like that is not easy to replace purely because it needs training. It's machine learning. So the AI part is always misleading because it suggests that there's some kind of android sitting there who has their own mind and view of the world, which is not at all true. Yeah. All of this is just huge training sets and people manually going in saying this. Google has done this training on us as users for years now, which is why they became much better at it. But if I then try to apply this to an NBC-specific use case, it's going to fail. So we're really looking at things where accuracy is not the key thing. So for instance, on Shahid, we have an asset library of about 100,000 assets, which is great, except that, of course, nobody actually taps into that vast archive. No user is going to go back 8 years in episodes of a program to find what interests them. So these are the kind of use cases where we go, well, listen, we could run an analysis against that entire library. We can actually make a business case by saying, if that increases the viewing of assets in our back catalog by an X%, which gives us an X amount of ad inventory increase, it's actually worthwhile already. For that, transcription doesn't have to be 100% accurate, because if we know 80% accurate that something is a comedy, or this specific scene in this specific show is very exciting, or it's a thriller, that kind of analysis, which is much rougher and much more generic, that can actually bring huge value. But the whole idea that AI is magically going to take over everybody's jobs, I think, is fear-mongering of people who just need to fill pages in magazines, which is fine, and it's an interesting read, but it's not the reality of how we operate things.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that.
I mean, right now, let's look at that and what are the things that has already been replaced as much as we know as well in our industry. And we know, for example, that in terms of automation and basically deployments to production, a lot of activities have moved completely automated. We know that, let me give you an example that was happening right now. We know that cars soon will be driven without humans, right? I mean, look, I'm not saying that this is now, but it is something that is happening in my mind, that we will be trusting more, not only the artificial intelligence, but also, this is the topic that we talk about, which is the machine learning, and basically what we're doing right now is that basically it's about how the machine can learn all of those things that are happening to the environment surrounding it to be better with time. Now, of course, this is not yet there, but I think we should expect it to be reality.
Some stuff just cannot get there. Some stuff can, absolutely can. In 5, 10, 15 years, you can train a model, you can make a custom model, you can accept a low level of accuracy, absolutely.
But I like what he said, right, as well. I like what you said about it's about also what is very important, what is very critical, what is not. I mean, I really like what you said, because this is also what's happening when it comes to, for example, the recommendation for the users. Is that something that the whole experience has been shifted completely towards also automating that in a way that is based on user behavior and user, that even if you were not 100% accurate, it will not really do a big problem to our customer.
It has great application on anything that is more or less generically applicable. which means recognizing images, because you can do this across millions or billions of images.
Yep.
It's actually with driving as well, which is the reason that Apple and Google have been driving around their cars for years now, because they need to train those models. But
Yes.
basically, driving is still a generically applicable thing. It's complicated maybe, but it's something that will
Could
always
happen.
be more or less the same.
It's about how
Those things work very well.
how you apply these AI things into the broadcast industry. Because AI evolution since the last 30 years had been happening.
Yeah.
And a lot of jobs had been replaced from production lines in big factories, from
Correct.
from multiple types of production. Let's take two things outside broadcast: aviation and security, like national security. Security systems, behavior tracking, profiling, facial recognition, they were before you deploy 100 person in the streets and they gather information. Now you don't need to. And this was happening for the last 30 years based on AI. So one type of job had disappeared, but it wasn't replaced. It created a different skill set working on the back end on this issue. The adaptation of AI in broadcast is challenging, like we all agree. I think is about, we start with the video, the indexing, the metadata, the shot list, creating all these stuff that before were like manual user jobs.
And recommendations.
And
right? I think
recommendation,
this is-
but few days ago,
Back engine is massive.
few days ago, China showed their own first AI presenter. 2 years ago in Denmark,
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
yeah, 2 years ago in Denmark, they started their first radio show based on complete AI. One segment, they go through all the news wires of the day. They select through an algorithm that somebody worked on the back end to personalize it and make it more human. And a piece was cut. Accuracy, non-accurate, but things are happening.
Most of our articles on our product, Dora Plus, right now is completely generated by,
Yes.
by an AI.
Okay. All right. So we're pushed for time. So I think, we've spoken a lot about cloud today, AI, touched on 5G, touched on cultural changes, touched on how satellites add in value.